August 15th, we are on a Bitcoin chart, and as always, we are going to look at the forecast for the movement. Also, we are going to see how you can profit from the chart when there is apparently not much movement. In the VIP group, we've won, for example, if we look at this forecast from August 1st to today, which is August 15th, we see that the price is practically, and without the practically, exactly in the same position, which is close to $63,000. However, in 15 days, we have won more than 20 positions, all consecutive, all profitable, and not a single loss. In a very simple way, and always entering with the signals that I explain to you in all these videos. If you've been watching me for a while, I always tell you at the end of the video how to enter intraday scalping. Although in reality it's USA, and you can make those same moves or those same forecasts when you enter for the longer term, for example on this 4-hour chart, or even over months. Anyway, in today's video, as we always do, we are going to look at that forecast for the movement for next week. We are going to see what I mentioned about those USA positions. And then I'll tell you how you can join the VIP Telegram group, which is already closed. It's 100 people. But there is like a back door where you can still get in. Without further ado, let's get into the analysis. By the way, I'm Michael Vasquez, and as we always do the analysis in Bitcoin Daily Analysis, it's about looking for what the institutions are doing, which are the ones who move the chart as they please. Like I told you, we were at 63,000. There has been movement over the last 15 days, but in the end, we're still in the same position. In other words, if you do reasonably good trading, you're always going to win. Come on, let's just go ahead and analyze the chart. I also wanted to tell you that if you see any group on Telegram or another platform with my name or Bitcoin Daily Analysis or something similar, it's not me. I am only here on YouTube, the videos you see, and in the private group, which you can't join by putting in my name or putting in Daily Analysis on any platform. You won't get into the group. You have to get in touch with me, as I'll explain to you later. If you see something similar, it's because they want to deceive you. And no, we don't let ourselves be deceived by the strong hands, nor are we going to let ourselves be deceived by anyone else. All right, without further ado, let's start analyzing. We've seen over these past few days that we had support or resistance on the higher time frame, which was forming an accumulation zone in Wyckoff that is now restricting that movement a little bit. But we are following it perfectly with the pseudo channel, which has given us a smaller movement in these last 20-30 days. If what you're interested in is making money with trading, whether professionally or as a side job, I've designed a course where you'll stop looking at indicators and start understanding what the market is really doing, what the strong hands are really doing, and you'll be able to make money the way they do. Let's continue with the analysis. Very well. The big move, which is the one that marks that entire accumulation phase, is 60,000, 68,000. That is to say, once, in the event that we see it clearly break both 60, which is a very, very remote possibility, and 68, which is a possibility that in the long term we are considering with more possibility. If we see that breakout with significant strength, not a fake out like we saw here when the time it broke 60,000, which was just trying to scare retail investors. If we see it clearly in the 68,000 zone, it will have definitely passed that accumulation zone, and we'll be in a markup phase that will develop quickly in the long term. Well, medium to long term, nothing is fast. But compared to what we're seeing, we'll see it climb to 80, 90, 100 pretty quickly. I'm talking about 1 or 2 months. That movement hasn't started yet, but it's what we're expecting in the medium to long term. In the short term, which is what we do on this channel, meaning 7 to 10 days, we're expecting dips into the zone between 60 and 62,300. However, as I've warned you in other videos, we are currently in this zone, 62,300 and 64,000. These are the most important zones. I told you in those videos that the price of Bitcoin was going to break through the mid-channel zone, 64,000. We already said it when it was at 65. We warned about it and it broke through. I told you it was going to retest the 64,000 zone because it's too important of a zone for the Bitcoin price to just pass through. Normally, when it's a zone of that magnitude, what it does is break and retest. That's exactly what we've saved. You can see that, well, it's not that it touches exactly 64,000, but rather it can go a little bit higher, a little bit lower. As I always tell you, all these lines that appear on the charts aren't just lines, but rather zones, but the name's the same. Normally it marks it, as you can see, at 64,000. It's the name we give to this line. However, it is a zone. There you are. It did the retest several times. I told you that we were going to see the price touching the 62,300 zone. It hasn't gone that low, but it's been very close and has started that rebound. Yesterday, also in the VIP Telegram, the signals were for the pullback, and those of you who are there, well, you saw that it was like that. Very well. We have set what the forecast is starting from this week. I'm talking to you from Sunday night onwards. On Monday, we'll start to see it get closer to this 62,300 zone, trying to make breakouts and retests from below. That is the forecast, let's say. It's what the price movement, it's what we're expecting, seeing how the strong hands are behaving. However, you know that at any moment we look at VSA, which is the relationship between volume spikes and candle spread. The moment we see the price appear in a reaction zone, reaction zones are those marked as support or resistance, and we see how that volume spike comes in and the candle spread accompanies it. At that moment, we have to pay close attention because it will probably break the forecast and try to make a reversal. For example, a reversal would be more likely than clearly rising from 64 towards 67. We can certainly see that volume spike and price approaching 64, but always understanding that as option B. Option A is approaching 62,300, breaking it, retesting from below, and starting the same game next week that we were seeing here. I call it a game when the price starts making wicks, starts bouncing between a support and a resistance. That's what I call a game. Well, very good. We saw last week that I warned you about the game we were going to see between 62,300 and 64, and next week it will probably have exhausted that movement and start playing the game in this zone. Let's see how it breaks the 62,300 zone, and that game might happen next week, or we might have to wait for the following one. What I was telling you about how to win with practically no movement, let's take a look at it. Now, we are on a 4-hour chart, and to win without movement, when we've entered the VIP Telegram and you see there's no movement for 15 days, what we take advantage of are those small movements, those candles that give us 300, 400, 500, even 1,000 points during the day. We do it by dropping the time frame to 30, 15 minutes. And as you can see, even though in the medium to long term, that is over the 15 days, there hasn't been any movement, it stayed at 63,000, it's enough, the movement from here to here or from here to here, to make good money every day. We always follow the same signals that I explain in my course, but I actually tell them to you every day. And in these videos, they are very simple and you don't need anything else. It's about waiting. Here we have an example, a fairly clear example. Approaching a zone of, sorry, I was going to mark this zone. Approaching a zone of support or resistance or pseudo support, resistance. You already know that on a 15-minute time frame, we can mark others that don't appear on the 4-hour time frame. We mark it. It would be the 62,300 zone. We wait for the price to approach clearly and start to form Japanese candlestick patterns, such as dojis. You see a doji, you see a long wick. These are elements that on their own don't mean the movement is going to change. What they are telling us is that there is a struggle. What we interpret is that the strong hands at that moment they say this far. They stop the retail from placing their positions anymore. That is to say, they enter aggressively against the retail and they change the movement easily. And that is exactly what we saw. Approach, candlestick formation, and an increase in volume. 3 elements that tell us it's going to change. We started to see it with this wick here, but you see that the movement hasn't manifested until 3, 4, 5 candles later. This is very common, seeing all the signals that appear at one moment and having to wait sometimes 4, 5, 10 candles for the movement to appear. But in a very high percentage, it does appear. Very well. What I was telling you, for example, now that the movement is reaching the weekend, we've talked about it many times, that there's like a very radical change between what it's like during the week for Bitcoin, where there's a movement, well, that we study, it's a very normal movement, and on the weekend, it seems that the movement slows down a lot and revolves around a fairly clear price. For example, in these moments, 64 was a move, a clear price, and now it's at 63. 63 is going to be the forecast during the weekend until what I was telling you about the movement during the week starts. It's going to be a key zone. The way to make money in intraday scalping over the weekend is to use those 63s as a reference and having a longer term reference that the price is going to go down. So what we simply have to look for is an approach or a breakout of the 63 zone. That would mark that reaction zone we're talking about. Then have some wick or some doji appear and have volume come in. These three elements will signal a short with a high probability of winning. In the long, we could also enter. The thing is that in this case, they are pullbacks and the risk is a bit higher. But you can also interpret the same signals in this way. Very good. What I was telling you at the beginning of the video about the VIP Telegram, which is closed, but I'm leaving a back door for people who, through my link, which I'll leave in the description, for mxc.com, you sign up, which is totally free, make your first deposit to trade, and so you can see that it is very profitable, and it's quite entertaining, quite profitable, and quite a nice way to practice your profession. MEXC will give you a $50 reward, and I'll let you into the VIP for free for a month. So you can try it out, so you can see how it works, and in a month we'll talk if you want to continue. Very well. I'll also show you yesterday's entry for the challenge. You know, I'm doing a challenge every day during the month of August. I start with $500 and I don't overcomplicate things. I always enter with the trend. When I see a clear movement, like here upwards, here downwards, I enter. I'll show it to you now. 10x leverage on that $500 account, and I make micro entries. Just one a day of $15, $20, $30 when the account is larger, bigger. So you can see that without overcomplicating it, I don't use stop loss. In case the movement went way off, I could close it, but I haven't. I've never done it. I simply let the TP trigger. I'll put the TP here that MXC sent me yesterday. And what I do is raffle it among everyone who meets the condition I told you, which is that you sign up at mxc.com using my link, make your first deposit, and I raffle off whatever I earn at the end of the month with this August challenge. The last month I earned $592, which I raffled off. The one before that, I think it was $227, and this one we're at $111. We're at the 15th, halfway through the month. Let's see what we end up with. I'm Michael Vasquez. This is Daily Bitcoin Analysis. I really appreciate you watching this video. As I always tell you, this is not financial advice, but rather I'm sharing my experience with you after more than 15 years in professional trading. Stay tuned, because it seems like that there isn't much movement on the chart, but even so, even with little movement, you can do some good scalping, some good intraday trading, and make good money over the weekend. See you tomorrow.